King of the Incels. Latest title for Jordan Peterson. If you're a critic, you may have also heard him referred to as magical super Nazi. While among his fans, some have even said that he is the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But on a serious note, there was a recent interview between Piers Morgan and Jordan Peterson where he talks about a movie directed by Olivia Wilde, where it's inspired by Jordan Peterson as so-called King of the Incels. And so today I'm going to be reacting to others reacting to this video. If you haven't seen the original video, I'll leave a link in the description below. But kind of the part that really has been going viral is at the very end of it, Jordan Peterson cries. And so I'm going to look at two different perspectives of how to interpret this interview. And so the first part is going to be with Hasanabi. He's a large Twitch streamer, talks primarily about progressive politics. And then the second person that I'm going to react to is a person named Low Tier God, who I would say is a content creator talking about so-called red pill ideology. And so let's get into it.
I want to ask you just quickly, the film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these
32
people?
32 months got me through my marriage.
Sure. Why not?
Own it!
People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional.
Dog, he's eating too much liver, dog. That's what he's done, okay? Let me tell you something. That's not a normal way to talk about this sort of thing.
Feeling primal AF, brother.
This man, there's something severely wrong with his brain chemistry. It's just it. That's it. Like, that's crazy. Too much meat, man.
We'll talk about that.
Well, God,
All right, so with that one, the thing here, so Hassan generally, he's all about trying to give the marginalized a voice, right? And it's just funny to hear him say that, it's crazy to look at this group of people that way. Somehow his brain chemistry's off. And to basically tell people that how they react to something is, not normal. I just feel like that's actually like one of the coolest things you can do to someone, right? Because if you say the way that you feel about something is, you shouldn't feel that way. You're literally telling someone that your grip on reality is wrong, right? That's someone that's insane. And then to say that because he's trying to speak up for a group that he identifies as marginalized. I don't know. It just seems, quite frankly, cruel to me to do that.
it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, like, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough.
But
was fucking all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
When she said that, Olivia Wilde, it stung you, didn't it? I saw the
reaction. By
reaction.
that time, you know, that as far as
this is why Andrew Tate was so dangerous, dog. After a certain point, like when your brain is so irreparably harmed by the benzo plus like all meat diet, even the most even the most diehard incels are gonna look at a dude who's like crumbling and crying and go, yeah, that's too much for me, dog. I think that's like a little bit too much. You're like crying. That's weird. You know what I mean? Whereas like Andrew Tate at least is like, I'm a top G. I never cry. You know?
I just find this comment really strange because what he's basically saying is, you know, like these lonely young men should be more like Andrew Tate. He's literally saying that as a progressive person. I don't know. I just find this take really bizarre to say that. And it's also funny. It's like making fun of a man for crying, right? I mean, isn't that like literally? Aren't you literally incentivizing what you would call toxic masculinity, right? Like, why are we trying to say that it's bad for a man to cry?
No. In a weird way, he's not toxic enough. You know what I mean?
As critiques
There you go. You even said it, right?
go, that was kind of low level. I mean, once I got painted as Red Skull, you know, that was kind of the end of the insults. There's no place past that.
Not me, I
So-
will say.
When Olivia Wilde made those comments, the first thing I did was go look at the preview for her movie, which I quite liked. I thought I would go see that movie probably, and perhaps I will. It didn't really bother me. My
Bro, you're crying, dude. You are crying.
family and I talked about it right away, and we were able to respond
Hello,
to it with
everyone.
some degree of
I'm
humor,
Elon Musk.
which then people completely misunderstood. I said I hope that, you know, that if I had to be played by someone, I think it's Chris Wilde, is that he's a very good-looking man, and so that seems all right, you know. And then I said something like, I hope he gets my fashion style choice right when he plays me, and it was a joke. All that was a joke.
I mean, you've been so controlled today, and yet in that brief moment, you got very emotional. Why?
It's really something to see.
2 months from the third world has.
He's crying for the incels, man, the disenfranchised.
Constantly. How many people are dying for lack of an encouraging word?
26 months, let's go.
I mean, to have that response to that, to just burp at that is, like, to be honest, like, it sounds extreme, but it's like psychopathic. Like, it means you literally have no empathy at all for this. To hear Jordan Peterson talking about the fact that he sees all these disaffected young men, and the fact that they are starving for any source of encouragement, and then to respond to that with burping, just, I don't know, I mean, it speaks for itself. Yeah.
And how easy it is to provide that if you're careful. You know, give credit where credit is due. And to say,
They're zooming on his face, dude.
That is weird, yeah. I agree with that. Here's his
Nerds on the
farming
internet
list.
are the most oppressed, marginalized group. Especially nerds on the internet that turn around and say that, like, black people deserve less and they're getting too much of the podium. And those are the people that, you know, are the most marginalized. Why are they marginalized?
Yeah, boy, yeah.
Because they can't even say their ideas openly. Their video games are being taken away from them. Okay? Their video games are being taken away from them, where the video games now feature, like, black characters. You know what I mean? Female characters. Back in the day, video games were not political. Now they got political characters like that.
you're a net force for good if you want to be.
How can he have so much sympathy and empathy for, like, incel dudes, right? And talk about them as though they are, like, the most marginalized people on the planet. And there is a level of that. Especially because, like, a lot of these dudes are neurodivergent, right? Like, there's a lot of incels that have, like, you know, not the best mental health, right? There are degrees of marginalization occurring with respect to these incels. But having said that, how do you have that level of sympathy for those, right? Which I have some level of sympathy as well, and I talk about it all the time. But then when it comes to, like, a trans person, you're like, no! What your doctors are doing are butchering you!
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Hassan. You know, I appreciate that he can at least express sympathy for, you know, these quote unquote incels. And there's two things I do want to talk about this, though. You know, I mean, it's, I guess first, the reason I think it's a valid point with Jordan Peterson is because, you know, some of his content, like on Twitter and stuff, is, I mean, the tweet that got him banned from Twitter, it's bad. And so that's a valid point. The one thing that I don't like, I just don't understand the point of trying to rank suffering. Right? Like, what do we gain by doing this? What do we gain by saying, oh, this group is more disadvantaged than this group, and that group's more marginalized, and if you're less marginalized, we shouldn't, have empathy and sympathy for you unless you're the most marginalized group, and oh, this person's privileged and that person isn't. And then if you want to play this game of we can only have sympathy or empathy for the most marginalized group, it's like, okay, so you have to be like a black lesbian trans woman that's a paraplegic with no teeth, one eye, and can't talk. And it's like, how about everybody suffers, and how about we say what would be good is if everyone suffered less? Like, is that really so hard to say? Is it so hard to say, okay, Jordan Peterson here is talking about incels, and we can just, while we watch this, say, yeah, you know what? I have empathy for that. The conversation is about this, right? Like, this is, Piers Morgan has finite time to talk to Jordan Peterson. He's talking about the incel thing. It clearly resonates with Jordan Peterson, and so he had an emotional response, right? In this one interview, he's not supposed to, it's unreasonable to expect that he's going to talk about every marginalized group and every, potential thing. And then it's like, another thing with this hierarchy of oppression, I think this whole thing, I'm just going to be blunt, is just fucking absurd. It's such a bad way to view the world. And I don't know if any of you know who Redpills is. Redpills was a streamer, and a lot of people would call this guy privileged, right? He was a wealthy white man. He was doing really well on streaming. He was a millionaire. He had a really nice house, all this other stuff. And in 2020, he killed himself. And, he was loved by the community, right? And it's, what do you say to that? You say, too bad, you're a privileged white man, so we shouldn't have sympathy for you. It's like, what is the point of having this hierarchy of privilege and marginalization, right? It's like every fucking person on earth suffers, right? And it wouldn't be better if all of us did that a little bit less, right? And it's like comments like this don't help anyone.
Like, that's crazy. You are overall such a horrifyingly awful human being when it comes to like other forms of marginalization, that it's like impossible for me to take you seriously when you are talking about incels. People who are asking like about the authenticity of this, right? I do think it's authentic. I think his tears are real. I don't think Jordan Peterson is like good enough of an actor to fake cry. I think those tears are very much real. I do also believe that his brain is broken.
3 months of
like, I think that's the reason. I think that's
I just don't understand the brain is broken comment. Like this just, I don't know. I just feel like this looks bad on Hassan. It's like, like this just demonstrates that you just clearly can't empathize with someone that you disagree with.
the reason why he's like crying real tears when he thinks about like a white weirdo kid who's like in these forums writing about like Pokemon or whatever is like the real victim of society. You know what I mean?
Round 3.
Not about being the real victim, but it is a victim, right? I mean, it's these people are lonely. That there are a lot of lonely young men, and the problem I have with this reasoning, it's like, you shouldn't feel bad for this group. You should feel bad for this other group instead. It's kind of like, why can't we extend empathy to both groups, right? Like, is this actually exclusionary? Like, can we only have empathy for lonely young men or for trans people? We can't do both. Like, I just don't understand the point of this kind of reasoning. And I don't mean to like just totally beat on his son here. I kind of am. It's more like, like right now he's just kind of a representation of kind of a larger problem I see where there is a lot of this kind of black and white thinking. I do want to recognize though that, Hassan, like he has expressed some empathy towards, let's say lonely young men. I hate using the word incel, even though I think it's actually appropriate, but like involuntarily celibate is appropriate, but for some reason incel means something totally different.
Like those are the real victims in Jordan Peterson's idea. In Jordan Peterson's like ideal world, those are the only people that are victims. You know what I mean?
Okay, I'll say one last thing on this because I'm really farming this one. But okay, first up, he's never said only, and then everybody is going to resonate with something. but they're not going to resonate with every single group, right? Like, you're going to resonate with the group that you have interacted with or that you identify with, right? And it's like, for me, that group, you know, largely is definitely, let's say, confused young men. In particular, definitely, let's say, young people that are drug addicts. You know, I used to be a drug addict. I dropped out of high school because of drugs. And so that resonates with me, right? And so if I see people that are struggling with drugs, I feel like I can identify with that. I feel like I might know how to help them since it's something that I have been able to overcome. And that's going to affect me. I'm not saying this group is the most in need of care. I'm saying this group is in need of care and it resonates with me. You know, like, you can say the same thing now in reverse, same concept with this, with kind of people on the right that are more conservative that basically treat drug addicts as, you know, terrible people and we should lock them up, right? I mean, it's the same thing. Like, in some sense, like, what I'm trying to point out is a conservative saying that about people who, let's say, have a challenging relationship with drugs. A conservative saying that to someone like that, it's identical to Hassan saying this right now about incels. And, like, it's kind of that hypocrisy that really bothers me, right? Because it's like, if you zoom out one level of abstraction, like, a lot of this stuff politically on the left and the right are actually identical. But yeah, I don't think that, I just don't think this is a reasonable way to look at, you know, actually having empathy for a particular group as if it's the only group that's worthy of empathy.
I mean, like, and
Islam.
And I think that the reason why he feels that way is, one, because he understands, like, where they're coming from.
Okay, great.
And two,
thank you, Hassan. Yeah.
because his brain is broken.
Why even throw that comment in there? You know, just leave it on the first one.
Net, yes. In all the details, probably not. You know, no one's perfect. So
That's why he said net.
people make their mistakes as they stumble uphill.
Jordan's been a fascinating interview.
Bro, he is weeping. There's like, this is like, how are you going to tell me if he's...
I don't know. I'll leave it at that. I'll put the link for this video in the description as well. You can, if you want to check out the rest of it. This guy's, you know, if you know what the red pill ideology is, you know, if you don't know, just we'll watch a little bit of this video. You know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, I'm gonna skip the intro. It's been too much, but
what's going on back at you with another video. You already know who it is. Just in case you don't, this is none other. Hello. Here's reactions. All right, listen. So there's been
all right, so there's kind of a cringe intro with this, but yeah, I'll skip ahead to the to the part where he actually comments on the video.
comparison.
The film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are, you know, despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
So the incel would basically be considered weirdo loner men. See, incels are the guys that stalk me. They're so worried about what I'm doing on my streams. They're losing out on actual IRL. There's so many distractions going on social media. A lot of these people, they lose 4 or 5 years of their lives jacking off to social media platforms, studying social media people, and they morph themselves into incels.
Who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure, why not? You know, people have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. You know, what a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about that.
Well, God, you know, it's very difficult to understand.
You see, here's the problem with Jordan Peterson crime when speaking about incels. Men that's watching this video, boys, whatever. Let me tell you a little secret about being a man and crying. All right, coming from somebody who literally can't shed any more tears, it's literally impossible for me now. Why? Because my emotions are in check. See, when you're a man that cries, you're showing vulnerability on a level you don't want to show. A man is supposed to be a poker face individual. Women are supposed to cry. Women were created around emotion. Men were created around brute. What this does is it shows vulnerability, especially to women. It shows vulnerability on a level you never want to be seen. It's a light you never want to shed and show people.
All right, so, call me a leftist shill, but that's toxic masculinity right there, right? And so, the way I want to say this is the evolution of an incel, right? So this is an incel that, read something like pickup artistry book or something like that. You got to be tough and rock solid and, never show emotions ever and always be alpha, you can't be no beta male, stuff like this, right? And so here's the thing. So now I want you to try to imagine this lonely young man, right? So this guy, what I want you to have in your head is someone that didn't have a male role model growing up, is awkward, doesn't know how to talk to women, is lonely, and would love to have a romantic relationship, right? So now this person goes online because, he's tried to actually talk to people in real life, doesn't go well, goes online, and he looks up how to talk to women, how to actually get a date, right? And so now I want you to ask yourself, which of these two would you rather be who this person finds? Would you rather them find this red pill ideology of basically thinking that women are retarded children, that you should never show vulnerability to, and that you should submit to you because you're such a powerful man, or someone who's willing to actually show emotion and show that he cares and resonates with people and wants to help them, right? I mean, like, I do think we have to think about this when, regardless of what you think about Jordan Peterson, it's a problem that's not going away. There are a lot of lonely young men. That's just true. But if you look at virginity rates, like they're going way up and stuff. Like, I remember my generation, they used to talk about how, people, virginity, it's happening at a younger and younger age, like, this is so terrible. And now it's the exact opposite. And so we have these lonely young men, and I don't know, I just feel like a lot of times the narrative is basically like, oh, well, fuck them, they are just toxic. It's like nothing that they do is good. They don't even offer anything that they should do. It's just, well, whatever you're doing, it's wrong, right? And so then there's people that decide to say, you know what, I'm not going to listen to this message, and I'm going to say, you know what, there is something that men can do. And both these people are offering that, right? And then you have the choice. Do I want this red pill ideology, which says that women are emotional, men are the strong, macho alpha males that never show emotion ever because they got their emotions in check, whatever the hell that means. And you have to ask yourself, what would you rather have?
Especially women. Let me tell you something. I was a guy that cried. I remember I was a teenager. Chick say she was gonna dump me. I was like, wait a minute, I can't let her leave. You know what I'm gonna do? If you leave me, I'm done. Like, I can't live no more. You know what that did? It gave women the power to think that they had me by the balls to manipulate me in any kind of way, shape, or form. There was times where I forgave chicks for cheating, fellatio, twerking. I could get a little bit more explicit, but why?
Yeah, how dare you let your girlfriend twerk? Yeah, what a monster.
Men, crying solves nothing. We talked about this shit in a few streams before. When you show vulnerability as a man, what you do is you rip away that armor and you just hand it over. You want to cry to women? You want to cry? You're never supposed to cry. See, men, you got to realize how to calibrate your emotions. You know what calibration means?
Yeah, I don't think he does. Like, calibration means to have your emotions in check, and pretending that you don't have emotions is the opposite of calibration. The other extreme is having them be very volatile. So I also want to empathize with this guy here, right? So I want you to imagine now you're an incel, right? And so you're this lonely young man. You have no real role model in your life. Everybody tells you that, you know, you're a freak and you're weird and you're creepy and you don't know how to do anything. And then, you know, or you're a murderer, you're a terrible person, you're a rapist. And then, you know, like that's all you have. And so then what happens in this worldview, and this is why I become religious, is because I think it's, yeah, okay, I'll get to it in a sec. So in this worldview, what you have is you have someone that's beating you down constantly, right? You have, whether it's, you know, your boss, whether it's the media, whether it's women rejecting you, whatever, it's, you have this sense of you're powerless, right? And then in your worldview, you say that, like, there are those who have the power and those who don't. In one of these therapy videos, they talked about, if you view a relationship, if you're aware of this idea of there's a power dynamic, then I don't want to use this word, but what they would say is that, you know, that's pathological, right? Like that means you, what I would say is that you should see a therapist. Let's put it that way. Like it's not a good way to view a relationship, right? But then I want you to imagine, why does someone view this, right? And it's, if in your life, like, and this guy's anecdote is very telling, right? Because he had this moment where he clearly really liked this girl, and then he got rejected by her, right? And so in some sense, there's kind of two pathways, right? And it's, you can, well, there's more than two, but there's at least two. And one is you try to say, okay, I'm going to work on myself, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to get to a point where I have the power, right? I'm not going to let a woman control me, I'm going to control her, right? And that's one. Or another one is kind of, you go the incel route, and you kind of become more, you know, introverted, you can become more hopeless, let's say, right? Or just lost, you don't know what to do. And so in this worldview, though, it's like the thing that determines a relationship is power. It's like either I'm in control or they're in control, right? And so in that worldview, like, the reason you have that worldview, and this is the part that I think is just, like, actually incredibly sad, it's, you've actually never experienced love if you view the world that way. Because if you've experienced love, then you know that there are relationships that are not about power. It's not about who's in control. It's about us trying to better each other and us trying to come together to create something that's greater than us as individuals. And if you've never had that, then all you see is the world is made up of power. And you might have heard this, especially if you have heard Jordan Peterson talk about what he calls, you know, postmodern neo-Marxists. And it's the same thing. It's the same concept there, where they view the world fundamentally as a battle of power. And in a world without love, all there is power, right? I mean, if you've never encountered or experienced or seen a relationship based in love, then of course you're going to think all there is power. And that is, like, it's actually, it's so depressing. And that goes back to what Jordan Peterson was originally talking about, right? I mean, it's just, it's sad. It's really sad, right? And then so the whole idea with what I'm talking about with religion, it's, you know, in the Christian narrative, the whole idea is God is love, right? And there's this concept. Okay, so, like, psychologically, when you go to therapy, the goal eventually is to come to a point where you learn to love yourself. And I think that's equivalent to the idea of experiencing the grace of God, right? So the grace of God is to experience, you know, from, let's call it God, saying to you that even though you've done nothing, I love you. And really getting emotional on this one, but the part that's really sad is a lot of people have never felt that. Never felt that from their parents, from their friends, from their peers, from the media, from anyone. And they don't feel it about themselves, right? And in that world where you don't know what love is, like, how many times have you talked to someone? It's like, try to define love, and you stumble, and kind of like, I don't know, and then they say something like, strong attraction or something. It's like, like unconditional love is like you are fine the way you are, and you're worthy, and you have a element to you that's divine, and the world would be a worse place without you, right? Like, that's what love is. It's not, but people don't know that, and that's the sad part. In a world without love, all you have is power. So, in some sense, I do want to say this red pill mentality is better than incel mentality, because it's kind of at least taking life into your own hands. But I don't know. Hopefully, we realize that this is not the best. And I personally think Jordan Peterson's much better than this.
Shits like this, you're like, wait a minute. You got to calibrate your emotions. See, a lot of you guys watching Jordan Peterson cry, you're going to think it's okay to be a lonely, hentai jacking incel. You're going to think it's okay to be a lonely, OnlyFans jacking incel. You're going to think it's okay to be a thirsty, gym-going incel. You're going to think it's okay to be a lonely, jacking incel that's obsessed.
Yeah, this one's tricky. Like, it is okay. So, like what does it mean it's not okay to be that, right? Like, it's the tricky part. Yeah, I even think Jordan Peterson gets this one wrong, right? It's that there's this balance between acceptance and encouragement to be better than you are, right? And what this guy's saying, so he's essentially going back to what I said, like he doesn't accept himself, I would say, like maybe that's kind of a leap to say that, but so how I would read this. And so there's two aspects of it. And then, like in a kind of symbolic sense, it's maternal and paternal. So like the maternal aspect is to accept you, right? Like usually, especially for young infants, and the symbolic maternal and paternal, like it doesn't have to be your mom and dad. Like they can swap. It could be your aunt. It could be your coach at sports, whatever. And but it's like the symbolically feminine role is to just love you the way you are, to accept you no matter what, right? And then the paternal element is it's supposed to be to guide you to become more than you are, right? To transform into all that you could be. And like these two things are not at odds with each other. People think that they are, but you can accept yourself and say, I am who I am. And it's okay that I am who I am because I am this way. And there's nothing wrong with the fact that I am where I am right now. It just is. You don't have to put good or bad on it. It's just true. Right? Like I am here right now. I'm a PhD candidate in physics. I'm a little bit overweight because I'm studying for my qual. That's just true. Like these are facts. Like it doesn't have to be, I shouldn't be this way and I suck, But then it's like, okay, well, I'd like to be better than this, right? I'd like to have my PhD done. I'd like to, go to the gym and start, losing weight again. And so it's fine that you are this way. It's okay that you're an incel. There's nothing wrong with you if you are someone who doesn't know how to talk to women. It's okay. Then we want to encourage these people to gain skills. And so he gets this element correct. So I want to give him credit for that. He does get the element correct of, like, let's try to improve ourselves. But I don't know. I just think a lot of this red pill ideology, it's, like you're improving in a direction that I don't think is good. And I don't think most people think it's good. But if you get rid of people like Jordan Peterson, then, this is kind of what fills the void. So you can pick.
That's with the man. Now I'm pointing to myself because I have a lot of incels that are on my actual virtual cock. These are guys that cry at night. These are the guys that are liking hentai. These are the guys that are thirsting over Instagram chicks that they literally have no chance at banging. That's what creates incels when you live in a fantasy life, in a fantasy land, instead of actually going to experience that. See?
And one other thing about this, so this guy talks about having his emotions calibrated. Like one thing about the red pills, they always forget about anger. It's like somehow anger's not an emotion. Because like you can see this guy. Like I feel like this guy seems like, he brushes his teeth angry too and stuff, I mean, it just seems like you can just see the anger just kind of oozing from him, And it's, anger is energizing. And so it's an improvement, right? But like, it's better if you can really form a relationship with all of your emotions and not, like essentially just always be on anger mode. Like anger mode, like, hey, if your goal is to be a warrior and you just want to go, fight battles and do all this other stuff, like go for it. But if you want to be like a civilized human that has a fulfilling life, then like there's more to life than just anger.
Incels or something that's, like I said, social media creates. The metaverse, nothing but incels. Oh, I don't have a girlfriend in real life. I'll go buy one. I got married. You're on the phone. It's gonna get to a point where people are on the phone. Your mom's ask you how you doing. Your dad's ask you how you doing. Well, how you doing, Joe? Like, what's been going on in your life? Well, Dad, I finally got engaged. Wait a minute, you got engaged? Oh wow!
Yeah, this little bit of the video is pretty. I don't know, not my favorite. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to check it out. We'll just watch the rest of this video and kind of end it there.
Insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women like
men don't know how to make themselves attractive. Let me tell you something. It's called tapping into your testosterone. That's what it is. You tap into your testosterone. How do you not know how to make yourself appealing? Brother. First off, let's do it like this. First off, you have to make yourself appear appealing to yourself before you can appear appealing to anyone else.
Okay, that's actually good advice, right? Like this is the thing that I do like about the Red Pill community. They encourage you to, like, they do have the paternal encouragement. Like, they're kind of, a little bit more aggressive than I think is ideal. But I don't know. At least it's an encouragement. At least it's saying, like, hey, do these things to fix yourself up. And I think it's a step in the right direction. If you go to the gym and you try to work on yourself, you try to get a good job, you try to do this stuff, even if you're kind of chasing these material ends, like, oh, I want to get a Lambo, I want to do this other stuff. Like, it's better to be in that position than to be like, okay, I have absolutely nothing. I have nobody that likes me, nobody that cares. So it's like, this is an improvement. And so I think it's important to kind of separate the good from the bad. I think, kind of like what most people think of incels, they do share kind of this, what I would call like kind of a misogynistic view of women. But I do think that this is an improvement over incels, let's say, or lonely men. And I don't know. I just think it's important to have nuanced takes on these things, right? Like, there's good and bads to all of this.
If you don't feel yourself when you look in the mirror, nobody else is going to feel you. It's just that simple. So men, our core make, really, a lot of us is testosterone. A lot of you dudes be eating tofu and have man titties and everything. We're talking about, but everybody that's a man has testosterone. The problem was that a lot of you dudes don't know how to tap into your testosterone. You're too lazy to hit the gym. You're too lazy to be physical. Choose to be ugly. You don't want to groom yourself. You don't want to etch yourself. Groom, right? Get a fresh liner. Make it crispy. I'm a little grimy right now, but I did a small touch-up. Because last stream, I felt like my haircut was expiring. A lot of you dudes, you don't get haircuts 2-3 times a month. You don't put on deodorant. You have dandruff. You have earwax. Your breath stinks. You have guts, titties. The qualification for being a man is a lot more now than it ever has been in any place in history.
Yeah, I think you get the point. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I wanted to give kind of a round take on this, and I didn't want to, just have this be a, slamming on the libs thing. If you're looking for another person to do that, that's not me. But yeah, hopefully you like this. I wanted to kind of mix this up and do different kind of content. I think I might do this more, definitely early on, kind of react to things that are kind of trending till I hopefully get a bit bigger. But if you like the content, make sure to like and subscribe. You can hit the bell notification to stay up to date. And stay tuned until next time. Take care.